Well, John Apter is the National Chair of the Police Federation of England and Wales, and he joins us now. How do you think this will be responded to amongst rank-and-file police officers? Are they going to be thrilled that they've got pressure from above, as it were, to hand out more fines for people doing things like sitting on park benches?
Good afternoon. No, I don't think they will feel the pressure because the pressure is very much already there. Certainly during this crisis, we've seen from the early days there was a large level of compliance. Understandably, I think people were shocked by what had happened. First time many had been in this sort of situation with a lockdown. But as time moved on, we saw that whether it's because people didn't understand the rules, they were frustrated by the rules, or a growing number who, no matter what the rules were, they simply weren't going to abide by them, or they didn't agree with wearing face masks, or didn't believe the virus actually was real. So there's been an increasing number, still relatively small in number, but an increasing number of people who were ignoring the rules anyway. And my colleagues, like everybody, will watch programmes like this and see the number of people who are dying from this wicked, indiscriminate virus, and they will want to do the best they can to protect people. And I think the vast majority of people now do know what the broad sense of what the rules are, and they're doing the best to comply with them. But there will be some who won't. And my colleagues, yes, of course, they'll still engage with people and explain, but they'll be much quicker to go up that list straight to enforcement, which we've already been seeing for a number of weeks.
The problem is, though, that some forces are seen to be a little bit too zealous. We know that this case of the two girls who went out for a walk and got fined, but then that's now been rescinded. I mean, is that a problem that there doesn't seem to be the same regulations for all the different police authorities? Some are a bit more overzealous than others.
I don't think it's about being overzealous. I think you have to put this in context, and I would say this, wouldn't I? But this is how my colleagues, I represent 130,000 police officers across England and Wales, and they are doing the best they can in the most extraordinary of circumstances. So the rules that we've seen in the legislation, so you've got the legislation, which is the law, and you've got the guidance, which isn't legally enforceable, but most sensible people will try and follow the guidance if they know what it is. But over the past 10 months or so, the legislation, the guidance has changed so quickly, so dynamically, sometimes literally overnight. And when we weren't in a full national lockdown, well, England has got one lockdown, Wales is slightly different, the nations do things slightly differently. But before that, we were in the tier system where literally a postcode was different depending where you lived. So it has been really difficult to police. Police officers are doing the best they can, and there are thousands of encounters every day across the country between police and the public, thousands. But understandably, things will not always go right. And my colleagues in Derbyshire, the police officers on the ground, without doubt, did what they thought was right. That's now being decided by senior people that wasn't the right outcome, and apologies being given and the tickets have been rescinded. So I think we've acted quickly, but we're not always going to get it right. We're human beings at the end of the day.
Do you think the right messaging is coming from up above? We saw Boris Johnson going on a cycle ride and being seen 7 miles away from his home. Lots of people, cyclists, will say actually that's pretty standard. If you want to go on a cycle ride, you want to actually burn some calories and get some exercise, you do have to travel a fair old distance. But do you think that the right messaging is coming down from above?
I think that's really a really important point to make, and I think anybody with a public profile must do and say the right thing. I think when it comes to the Prime Minister and cycling, the issue that we have, and we saw this in Derbyshire, is it's not in legislation as to what is local. It's not defined in legislation. So my officers, my colleagues out on the ground have to do what they think is right. They have to do what they think is reasonable in the circumstances. What I might think is reasonable, you might not think is reasonable, and that's the difficulty. But ultimately, you look at how many people are dying from this virus, and we're all trying to do our best. This is a public health crisis. It's not a policing crisis, it's a public health crisis. We're simply just trying to do the best we can in these very, very dire and worrying times.
John Apter, National Chairman of the Police Federation. Good to talk to you. Thanks a lot.